Welcome to another episode of Our Inner Sparks Featured Insights. I am Lily Yan, your host of this podcast and founder of Our Inner Sparks, a social enterprise that provides products and services to enable individuals, businesses, and organizations to reach their fullest potentials in a fast and ever-changing world. We dedicate a portion of our profits to support and fund social programs to empower and enable those in the community, especially women in need. On our podcast, we will be featuring some amazing women in our communities doing extraordinary things. They will also be sharing some information, tips, and strategies around the area of their expertise to enable all of us to excel in our lives. If you like our program, please don't forget to subscribe. Just click on the subscribe button on your screen. If you would like to continually support the growth of our Inner Sparks social programs, such as this podcast, please consider a one-time or a subscription of donations on our website. Now, let's get to today's feature. In this episode, I have the pleasure to speak with Jackie Porter. She is a financial expert who is a highly recognized financial planner and financial advisor. Her vision is to create a community that feels inspired, engaged, and encouraged to build their financial IQs one conversation at a time. I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
Hi, Lily. It's so good to talk to you again. I'm actually looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am also very excited about our conversation. I know you have a unique way of relating to people on a topic that most people have a hard time talking about sometimes because it's intimidating. The subject I'm mentioning here is finances. And I know your perspective is so refreshing, so I can't wait to hear about it. It's not often presented in that fashion, so I'm glad you're here to enlighten us on a subject about finance and healthy mindset behind that. So thank you so much for joining us.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Lily. I've been in this industry now for 24 years. And one of the things I've come to learn in my time, and this is actually not, it's actually not the profession I thought I was going to be doing. If you asked me in my 20s what I was going to be doing, I thought I was either going to be a journalist or a psychologist, a therapist, working with people on maybe their their mom and dad issues.
Right. Well, very intriguing. That's a good segue, right? Give us a little bit of introduction of who you are and why are you so passionate about finances? How did you get into that?
Well, so when it comes to talking about money, it's uncomfortable for us. And what I found, working, in the two dual professions of both working on becoming a journalist and becoming a psychologist is those two areas, right, are actually not as unrelated as you might think. People talking about their mom and dad issues, for example, they're not isolated conversations because some of them have to do with their upbringing around how money was introduced to them, right? Was money something that was scary? Did they get a mindset of scarcity, or did they grow up with a mindset of abundance? Were they encouraged to learn about money and embrace financial literacy, or was it something that wasn't talked about in their household? And what happened in my own family is, I was raised by a single mom. My mother was someone who, we didn't have money conversations either, right? We actually learned a lot. I learned a lot from my mom about the importance of working hard. She was first generation immigrant here. She started off here as a housekeeper and worked her way up. And I saw her work really, really hard and being what it was back in the 70s. And I know I'm totally dating myself for your audience, but, unfortunately, child labor wasn't what it is today, right? So my mother not having access to babysitting meant I had to go along with her on a lot of her working projects.
So you saw a lot of that struggle too.
Yeah. And so she exposed me to working hard and how that was something that was rewarding as well. And that actually was something I'm really grateful to her for. It's just that, we didn't have money conversations. So what I learned about money is it's something you have to work really hard for. And so it just all depends on what you learn. So for a lot of my life, because my mother unfortunately passed away when I was a teenager, I was on my own very early. I was actually working 3 jobs at the age of 16 to just put a roof over my head, take care of myself. And, her philosophy on working hard got me through because I didn't have a plan B. So I was, working 3 jobs through high school, through university to pay for those things, to pay for food, books, etc. Right.
Right.
And that was, really my approach to money. And so when I decided I wanted to become a journalist or a psychologist, is because I just was so curious about psychology and how people, dealt with challenges. And I was, typically when people approach a profession, they're trying to learn about their own issues too, right? So
Absolutely. I hear you on that.
I was trying to learn about myself and, deal with my own struggles. And, as I've gone through that process and finished university, and because of all of these things, I became a really good saver, right? I learned how to save because I had no choice. Again, when you have no plan B, you kind of figure it out. So I knew how to save, finished university, got my first full-time job, got downsized from my first full-time job. And I actually had done some really great work, saving as much as I could while I was there. So I had money built up in benefits like stock options and what have you. And that was actually the first time that I had ever had money saved in my life that I wasn't worrying about, right? And
Hmm.
so I remember saying to a friend of mine, one of the friends I lived with when I was in high school, she said, you should talk to a financial planner about what you can do with this money.
Mm.
And I'm like, what's that? And so and so she was like, you need to talk to her. So I sat down with a financial planner who happened to be a woman of color, which was just such a rarity in the financial industry at that time. And I didn't know that until I entered it myself.
Yeah. Yes.
But she is the person I had my very first money conversation with.
Hmm.
And that money conversation was a game changer because she was somebody who, unlike my mother, talked to me about money working hard for me. So,
Right.
what you should know is at that time I was around 27. So, 10, 11 full years of working really, really hard for money. So,
Right.
I was captivated with this idea of money working hard for me. And
Hmm.
that was actually what drove me to become someone who wanted to get into the profession because I just thought, no one ever had a money conversation with me. And I just thought of all the times throughout my life where talking to someone like this financial planner could have made all the difference. And so I got into the industry, worked in there, built up my own 7-figure net worth. And as I started to do that, I thought about all of the other people who may have had similar experiences, similar backgrounds, who could also benefit from a money
Right.
conversation and the difference it would make. And one of the things I learned through being in this industry for so long is it's difficult to talk about money. And that's probably why it wasn't a widely shared conversation in my household. If you grow up with immigrant parents and truly overall in society, talking about money is a taboo. So I couldn't imagine talking to my immigrant mom about money and or even like my extended family, because I know for sure I would have gotten what we call in our immigrant community, the side eye, right? Like, what? How
I think
dare you?
sometimes it's also because people just don't know what to think of it, or they don't have an idea what else they can do. So I think a lot of times it stems from also the unknown and this uncertainty and the fear, so that
It
people
is
just
the
don't talk
fear.
about it, right?
It's the fear and it's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
So it's just not a conversation. In fact, I would argue that talking about money is probably less widely accepted than talking about sex, which is interesting, right?
That's an
Like,
interesting perspective. Yes.
why is that? Like,
Yeah.
why is it that I can't have a conversation, especially as women, we make less than men, we spend so many of our years caregiving.
Hmm.
We should be talking with each other to say, hey, am I being paid fairly for doing the same job? Especially if I have a coworker who's
Hmm.
doing, similar to me. Why can't we start having those conversations? Especially because it could work to our benefit.
Of course. Yes.
So for me, being an advisor, I've just found that helping people to have these challenging conversations with themselves, with their families, was something I was really attracted to, especially because of my therapeutic background. I realized early on that I wasn't going to become a therapist, just simply because the philosophy at the time was unconditional positive regard, and it was about listening and not necessarily giving advice. And I
Mm.
realized as I was finishing up my practicum in university and working with people that this voice in my head kept screaming, we need to do something different. I wanted to give advice and I couldn't.
Mhm.
And I felt that, when I came to the financial planning profession, one of the things I loved about it is I could actually give people practical advice on how they could change their circumstances. That would be
Right.
a meaningful way for them to approach their life. And, one of the reasons I call myself a financial confidant is because I want people to feel like they can have those kinds of conversations with me that they may not feel comfortable having with other people.
Right.
And especially because the financial planning industry as a whole hasn't necessarily embraced giving people that room to have those really important conversations they want to have around money. And I know women have said to me that they felt working with advisors sometimes that they didn't necessarily feel the comfort level to say they didn't understand something, that they might have felt that
Right.
they would be shamed or blamed for the way they've managed their finances. And I wanted to just give people the comfort in the room to say, hey, we can have those conversations. There's going to be none of that because it's your money and it's your life. And if you're
Right.
going to work with someone, you deserve to feel respected and heard, of course. And like I said, the part that excited me was being able to give people really practical solutions to their money issues.
And I just love your whole kind of approach to it because a lot of people, when you look at finances and when you think about, what you do, it seems so technical and seems so foreign. Seems so that's why a lot of people I think take on that fear, right? Because they're like, well,
Yeah.
we don't understand it. But then when you turn it around, you look at it from, it's actually a mindset. It's really how you look at finances, and then you look at the tools that will and strategies that could potentially help you.
Yeah.
So that switches the whole game for people. I think it becomes a little bit more inviting and actually more relatable, right?
100%. And that's really my superpower is I love making financial planning relatable, fun. And you never know how you're going to use the skills you pick up later earlier on in your life. Because like I said, I wanted to be a journalist. So type is really important in journalism. How do you
Mhm.
say something that keeps people intrigued and
Right.
makes it fun and makes it accessible and relatable? And so being able to speak about money in a way that doesn't sound technical, honestly, that really scares me when people speak around money. And I know it scares my clients when people
Yes.
speak about money in a very technical, non-relatable way. And that's really like, that's the stuff I love is how can I make financial planning, money conversations engaging for the people I work with, for me, right? Because
Yes.
if it's something that I can't do, that it makes it fun for me, it just makes it less interesting to do on the whole. So
Absolutely. I
getting
love
people to
that. Love that.
leading, getting people to lean into money conversations and making it fun, that's something I just seriously, that's what I love to do. That's a really
Hmm.
big passion of mine.
Want to dive into a little bit of the conversation about in search of true fulfillment. I think it aligns to what you're talking about, kind of who you are and the passion you have in what you do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you those questions, and you're going to be given opportunity to answer it in one sentence or 10 words. So it's kind of a quick answer
Sure.
to those questions, and see what your gut feel and gut reaction is to these questions. The first one is, how do you define success?
I think success for me is making a difference. If I leave
Wonderful.
somebody happier, like I love complimenting people. So it's like, oh my God, I just made their day. That makes me feel good.
Yeah. The next question. What makes you happy in life?
Oh, travel, travel, going to different places and making, like finding out about different cultures. That is like my idea of happiness. Beyond that is when I was a young person, I only kind of understood what it meant, but I always thought of myself of being a philanthropist. And that was, if you
Oh,
asked me when I was in my teens, what I was going to be when I grew up is a philanthropist. Extended idea of that is a lady who lunches, who writes big checks to charities. My true passion is being able to make, when I say a difference, I really mean an impact
right. Yeah.
on organizations that I care about.
Yeah. And definitely shows through, like shines through with the work that you're doing. I think, on your website, you're constantly adding more context and helping people increase their financial literacy. That's making an impact in society, in our community. So good on you. Finally, what is one thing that you would say for somebody to take away from this conversation and to help them ignite and harvest their inner sparks?
Yeah, I would probably say, be prepared because finance is something we're going to have to grapple with over the course of our lives, start to get more comfortable having money conversations with yourself, with your loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
and with your team, because it might be that you have people who you deal with who you probably want to ask them questions and maybe you haven't gotten around to it, but make 2021 the year you make all of those money conversations a priority. So if you aren't really clear on what's happening with your taxes, when you go to your accountant, he goes here or she goes here, this is what you owe. Decide that you're going to have those conversations around your finances with your team, like your tax preparer, and make sure you really understand what's going on, or with your advisor, and make sure you're holding their feet to the fire on how they're working with you, how they're adding value, because you deserve it. It's your money and it's your life.
Yes,
Same
absolutely.
same thing with your loved ones. It's hard to have conversations around money with your loved ones, and it could be your children or it could be your partner. But you have to understand, especially when we're talking about children, if you don't want those not so great money habits to be repeated, they stop and start with you.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about actual, the financial health mindset and strategies. What would you say that some top concerns that individuals should really be considering when they're looking at creating financial stability and wealth? What is an approach that they should be really thinking about?
Well, I think probably first and foremost is it's that importance, especially as women, to start leaning into these money conversations, right? I think we have to, even though, sometimes it's hard and our mindset might want
Mm-hmm.
us to not lean into them, is consider yourself a lifelong learner of understanding money. I mean, I'm a financial planner, I'm writing, speaking about money all the time, yet there's so much to know because this field is constantly changing. Tax is always changing. Situations are changing. We're in a pandemic right now. So that's going to impact how people see money and deal with money. So just decide, what is an area that I actually think I do well around finances, and try to double down on that. So pat yourself on the back for that. So maybe you're someone who might be a good saver. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that you might want to double down on. How can I save more? How can I find strategies to do that? What am I not doing so well on? Like, what do I want to learn more about? And then challenge yourself to pick up a book, listen to a podcast, like something like what you have going right now.
Mm-hmm.
Find information online that will improve your financial literacy in that area.
Right.
And I think those are the things that I would, as a start, say, what can I do more of? So I can double down on that. Where can I improve my financial literacy, zero in on that? And then what are the potential opportunities in my financial circumstances that I should be looking at, that maybe I want to either explore working with somebody on, or working on my own?
Right.
Like, right, identify your financial situation from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I like you say leaning. It's so it's kind of being proactive and really assessing your situation, understanding where you are right now, and then figure out, how can you actually better it, right?
Yes,
So I
that's
really
right.
like that.
So
Mm-hmm.
what if you have a weakness in a certain area, or it could be what scares you, right? Like what you're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that you want to address. So address address where you're doing well, address the areas that you want to learn more of, or the areas that scare you. So maybe
Right.
you sit down with somebody, because it could be, we're in a pandemic and I'm worried about losing my job. Well, there's something you could do about that. How do you protect yourself? Because this is an important time to
Yep.
be resilient.
Right. Absolutely. When you're talking about getting the support, talking to the people, it's so important right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it could be even taxes. So, and then the other thing is, put a team together, because
Hmm.
I'm someone who, my thing that scares me is I'm technically illiterate when it comes to my car and doing repairs. So this is an area that I've decided I want to outsource.
Right.
That's
Right.
not something
Right.
I'm that interested in learning about,
That's
but
right.
I do want to know. I want the person that I'm dealing with. I want to know that they're competent,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Right.
So I feel like they're giving me the full scope. And so decide areas where you're going to get someone you're going to outsource. So
Right.
what will I do, and what will I need someone to help me with?
Right, right. And actually, that goes across in all areas of life, not just
Yeah.
finances, but
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely.
There's only so much time in the day,
Yeah,
right? So do I really want to learn everything there is to know about car repairs or renovations? Probably not the best use of my time. So where
right.
should I outsource that's going to make the best use of my time and money?
Absolutely. So, what would you say, I guess, in terms of, finances? I think a lot of people feel the fear because there's a lot of risks in it, right? So, what would you say some of the major risks are that people should be aware of, and how should they
Oh,
really be looking at that?
yeah, yeah, and it's an important time to talk about risk because I think as a whole, our industry has looked at risk in one specific way. We might talk about risk in the markets and losing money in the markets, and I would
Mhm.
probably argue that the top financial risks that people face aren't the markets. FYI, it's
Hmm.
actually potentially losing your job,
Hmm.
losing your health, or potentially getting divorced and not being financially prepared for any of those risks.
Right.
So one of the things you can do if you lose your job and you're worried about that, that maybe one of the concerns that somebody has right now is, our economy weakens through the pandemic, is having a really solid emergency fund, right? So putting away 3 to 6 months, doing a deep dive on where you're spending your money and looking at ways you can reduce that. So first thing is get a sense of where your money is going. Write down your expenses. Go through the last 6 months of your expenses. That could include your bank account, your credit card statements, your other loans, and then write down what is your lifestyle costing you. Look at ways to reduce your interest as much as possible. Stay away from those credit cards and carrying a balance on those credit cards. That's double digit interest you're paying after tax.
Absolutely.
So and then look at a way to save 3 to 6 months of your lifestyle costs so that if you do lose your job, you don't have to go into further debt or be at risk of being able to risk your lifestyle if that's the case.
Yes. Yes.
In terms of losing your health, I would recommend that people look closely at what their health plans at work, if they're employed, look at what their health plans cover, what they don't cover, and see if they need to address that with supplementary coverage. So, do they have disability at work? What will it cover? Do they have, health insurance at work? What will it cover? What won't it cover? And what's the risk specific to their circumstances that they need to get supplementary coverage for? Same
Hmm.
thing with critical illness. So looking at all those things, because those things can, if you face a health issue and you haven't addressed all of those things, those can take a really big dent in your financial health over the long term. And
Yes.
then the final thing is around divorce. And all of these things are, by the way, happening during the pandemic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And divorce is, nobody plans to, ever say goodbye to a spouse that they've said hello to, right? And
Hmm.
I do too. But unfortunately, these things happen. And, we were talking earlier, the risks for women is we live longer, we take time off for caregiving, and we make less. And so I really want women and men, for both parties, to start thinking as you contemplate a relationship, having those crucial financial conversations with your partner around money, about their
Hmm.
approach to money,
Right.
just to make sure they're on the same page. How much debt are they in? And I know these are concerning, these are hard conversations to have, but it's a really important conversation to have to determine the longevity of your relationship. Because what this research says is when people aren't having those conversations, just imagine, Lily, you and I are a happy couple. I don't know that you have bad credit and you're in debt.
Hmm.
What toll is that going to take on our relationship as we try to do things together, maybe go on vacations together or
Right.
buy a house together or have children together? How will those internal resentments lead to me thinking, you know what, Lily, after all this, maybe that loving feeling isn't there anymore. I don't think this is going to work out. But
Right.
then what's the financial consequences of that breakup? How is that
Oh,
going to,
yes.
because if we never had conversations around prenup, around post-nup or cohabitation agreement, how am I going to potentially be financially worse off because we never had the conversation to begin with?
Right. Oh, so many great suggestions. Oh, it's amazing just talking to you. We're learning so much from here. I know on your website, askjackie.ca, you also give like insights with videos and, like you said, articles about finance and money. I suggest everyone else to go in there and take a look because there's so much information that you're sharing with everyone. That's just amazing. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated being here. Like my goal is to build out our website so we have as much financial literacy material on different topics as
Yeah.
possible. So people should go keep checking the website because we're going to always add content on different ways that people can improve their financial IQ in a certain area. You know,
Yes.
my role, I'm really big on nicknames, Lily. So my role and my nickname on my team is the cheerleader, just because I
Oh.
really love cheerleading people around their money, around financial literacy. I love cheerleading my team in what they do. And,
Mhm.
I love cheerleading as well, as I said, my clients and just improving their financial literacy. So feel free to check out our site. We have an actual video there and a test you can take called What's Your Financial IQ? If you want to learn where your weaknesses and strengths are and where you should look at to improve your financial
Oh,
literacy.
wonderful. And I like what you're saying about, you're a cheerleader, and I can totally see that coming out of you and, feel very motivated when I'm even speaking to you about finances. So great suggestions. And to our listeners, we appreciate you listening and tuning in as well. So you can find Jackie's information on her website, askjackie.ca. And I'll be leaving other information of hers as well on our show notes. Talk to you later. Thank you. Your thoughts on this episode is encouraged on all our social media platforms, which are listed in the podcast descriptions. I hope you will consider joining us on our online community. I look forward to seeing you there. If you like our programs, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on that bell to get notifications of any new programs. Should you or someone in your life have been actively contributing in the community and have some expertise that could be shared on our podcast, please feel free to email me with a nomination for future features. Again, the email is ourinnersparks@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Our Inner Sparks Featured Insights.